It's so wonderful to have you all. Thank you very much for coming. I submit to you that you're here because you care. And thank you for caring, and thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Before I start, we have a minute or so. We have some wonderful coffee and cookies in the back. If you would like to grab some before we just start, that would be great. As you probably noticed, we have our candidates here ready to go. Anyway, my name is Walid, and I am essentially assisting our great chair, Barbara Cooper. She's going to moderate the forum tonight. With that, let me start the meeting. A couple of safety items. All four doors are exit doors essentially. If you exit from one to the right next to the coffee pot, it takes you to the hallway. Also, the bathrooms are there, the toilets there if you need them, just in case. But as I said, all four doors are, they can exit the outside. Folks, we are Fidalgo Democrats, are an independent democratic association with focus on education. We are not a PAC. We don't endorse candidates. No, unfortunately, we help them financially. So we don't have any dues, so to speak. The only thing we have is occasionally we pass the hat to pay for the coffee and the cookies. But for tonight, our great chair decided that the coffee is free as well as the cookies. So that's why it tastes so good. Anyway. At the start of the meeting, we Fidalgo Democrats acknowledge that we gather on indigenous land, the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Salish and Swinomish people, pay our respect to elders past, present, and future. Our next meeting is going to be on October 3rd, Tuesday, and it is going to be another forum. But in that case, we will have two sets of candidates, if you will. I wrote them down there just for your information. We'll have a school board candidates, Heather Brennan and Ed Borton. And then the city council candidates, TJ Fantini and Linda Martin. Shayberg will be moderating the event. With that, this meeting is being recorded. Our good friend there, Zayn, is doing that, and thank you, Zayn. The cookies are by wonderful dinner, Rita, and the coffee, I made it, guys, so. My request from you is, if you stand up, please don't walk in front of the camera. It tends to block the view. A reminder, please turn your cell phones off, if you would. That would be really appreciated. Tonight's candidates are Bonnie, as you probably all know her, Bonnie Bowers, and Corey Joyce. And as I mentioned, Barbara is going to moderate the event. Now, Barbara Cooper is a former nurse, and she has served on the school board for a number of years, and I call this. And currently, she is the chair of the Fidalgo Democrats. She is, I think, a very hardworking individual, and we all appreciate her. Before I turn it to Barbara, folks, I'm going to submit to you that these courageous individuals here, they put themselves in front of us so we can question them, push and pull them, and at times criticize them. And you know why they're doing that? To make our community a better place to live. And so with that, I'm going to encourage you to give them a hearty hand, please, just to say thank you. Thank you. Barbara, it's all yours.
Okay, I'm Barbara Cooper, and I'm usually the chair, and tonight I'm going to be the moderator, asking the questions. So I'm going to do a quick introduction of the way the format will be. It's really nice. Thank you both for coming. Really appreciate it. I'm going to ask you both to remember to talk into the microphone. It's really tempting to do this, and nobody can hear you. The mics aren't that wonderful. If you can't hear what's being said, please raise your hand, and we can make it a little bit louder. And I'm going to remind everybody right now to please turn off your cell phones, including me. Okay. I know that running for candidates can be very difficult, so thank you. It's not always appreciated, so I want to let you know that we appreciate it. The purpose of this forum is to ask questions that will allow us to get to know the candidates in a short time. The meeting can go up to 2 hours, and we'll see how that goes. There's lots and lots of questions, and the questions are from the steering committee and various people who have let me know they have questions. And we've spent quite a bit of time trying to pare them down and make them easy, or to answer and make sense. Hopefully we've been successful. We handed out 3x5 cards. If people have questions, you can go to the table and fill out a question. We'll take a break, and you can we'll pick up the questions, and we'll see how many we'll have time to answer. Jeff is going to be our timekeeper, and so that we can let them know when there's a time limit. We're going to start at the very beginning. We're going to have the format of it is going to be 5 minutes for opening statements. So both candidates have plenty of time to talk about their backgrounds, their community activities, their qualifications, and also their understanding of the port and the relationship of the commissioners and the staff. So that'll be 5 minutes. Then we're going to ask questions of both candidates. They'll have 2 minutes to answer. If we seem to need clarification, I can ask them for that as well. I'm going to try to remember to rotate the order, so one person goes first and the next person gets the next. The other thing we're going to ask the audience, please not to applaud or make noise. We want to be very respectful so everybody gets a chance to say what they want to say. And around 8 o'clock or so, we're going to do a 5-minute break, and that's so we can collect the questions and see how that goes. And then at the end, there'll be a couple of minutes, 2 minutes closing statements. And so I want to thank the audience. This is a great turnout. Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it. And thank you for running. So we will start by having, we'll start with Bonnie. If you want to do an introduction, that would be great.
Thank you, Barbara. There's so many people here I know, but I know there's going to be some that I don't know. So I am Bonnie Bowers. I'm a Port Commissioner for District 4. I have been on the Port Commission for nearly 4 years at this point in time. And a little bit about myself, I grew up in Skagit County. I went off to college, came back, got my dream job as a deputy sheriff with Skagit County Sheriff's Office. Worked there for 22 years, came to the city of Anacortes, became police chief, and retired here in 2017. And I'm an active volunteer in the community. I have sat for many years on the Anacortes Family Center board, and I'm an emeritus member of the board now, but I've been with them through 4 out of their 5 capital projects. I want to thank Fidalgo Democrats. As a Port Commissioner, I need to thank the 40th Legislative Delegation for their help this year with this session. The Port did very well this year. We received a $1 million capital grant from State Representative Lacannock, who's in the back of the room. Thank you. Senator Lovelet and Representative Rammel also helped us secure $800,000 funding for a commercial pump out project, and then $500,000 to look at electrifying or cold ironing our port. thank you so much. You know, the partnership between federal and state agencies is so important. So the Port of Anacortes is a municipal corporation. We are a taxing district. Our goal is economic development, job creation. And it's not public jobs, it's private jobs that we create. And how do we do that? We provide the infrastructure and the facilities that help private businesses succeed. In addition, we have a very strong commitment to the environment here at the Port of Anacortes. We've just completed, it's not complete, nothing's ever complete in environmental projects, but we've just finished our sixth cleanup that we've done since 2008. We've spent well over $65 million in environmental cleanup. And we've done that with partners, both federal, state, and insurance partners. So we're very, very grateful for that. We also provide public access. One of our biggest cleanups was, of course, the Scott Paper, which is now Seafarers Park. And we all enjoy that facility so, so much. So what do I bring to the port? Because, you know, I'm just a taxpayer in this community. I am not affiliated with any port business or really anything with the port, except I enjoy walking the Esplanade and I have friends with boats. You know, I had some transferable skills. The first being budgeting. The Anacortes Police Department at the end of my term was, we had 35 employees and a $6 million budget, but we were part of a larger organization, the city of Anacortes. And one of the things that really prompted me to run for a commission was when we had the housing crisis, the mortgage crisis. Mayor Maxwell came to all the department heads and said, we have to cut. The city's not raising the revenue. And at that time, you know, we really concentrated on sales tax and on tourism and things like that. And, you know, it got me thinking about how can we diversify our economy? How can we strengthen our economy so that we don't fall through the cracks? And if you look at the history of Anacortes, you know, we started out timber was king, and then we had fisheries and canneries, you know, and now we've got boat works, and the diversity of our economy is what can keep our community strong. So that is a very important aspect of why I became commissioner. I also bring planning experience. I've worked on 2 large capital projects in my career and many smaller projects. The biggest, of course, was the Anacortes High School. I sat on the building planning commission for that and was also involved in the finance committee for that. I think Gib Morris here, Gib was on the same committee that I was on. Big capital project, I'm very proud of that. The other project that I was involved in is the Skagit County Justice, what do they call it? The Skagit County Justice Center, which is the fancy word for jail. And thanks to the taxpayers, you know, we were able to build, it was over a $65 million project to house the Skagit County Jail, which was a necessary public thing. So those are things that I bring and I'm very, very proud of. You know, if I had 2 qualities to describe myself, it would be earnestness and forthrightness. I'm going to tell you the truth. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to look it up. In fact, Barbara asked me when I came in, what's in the bag? It's resource material. If you ask me a question I don't know tonight, I'm going to tell you. I'll find out the answer if I can for you. Thank you all for coming tonight. I so appreciate you taking time to learn about the port and learn about the candidates.
That's a tough act to follow. Did a good job. My name is Corey Joyce. I've been in Anacortes for 43 years. 30 of those years I've worked at the Anacortes Working Waterfront at the Port of Anacortes. I've been self-employed since 2001. During that time I had an excavation company where I had 4 employees that have branched off and opened up their own businesses. One of them is still here in town called Tonka Groundworks. I'm a hard worker. I'm always there when somebody needs help. I've given to the community. I've not, you know, with my name on it or anything, but I'm always there to help when needed. I've served on the Marine Advisory Board for nearly a decade, and during that decade I was the chairman for 3 years. The best part about being on that Marine Advisory Board was when I'm walking down to my boat, people are always stopping me with concerns or questions or this happened, that happened, and that gave me an avenue to bring it to the 14 people that are different parts of the marina to discuss it, and if it needed to, if it was past staff, it would go to commission. So that was a pretty good experience. Although I don't have an economics degree, I know how to run and manage a business. I will bring business mindset to the port. Of my several endorsements. 32 of those endorsements are port tenants. 28 of them run their business out of the port. 3 major endorsements are the ILWU Local 25, the Anacortes Professional Firefighters, and the Swinomish Tribe, which all 3 of those I have excellent relationships with. I believe in building relationships, whether it's business or personal, and I do it every day. I'm running for port commissioner so I can help create jobs. I've done that most of my life. As far as economic development, I recently, well, not recently, 2.5 years ago, bought a marine transportation company. And since then, I've doubled the business and I've doubled the living wage jobs. I believe building relationships is a very important part of being a commissioner. I will help do that every single day. That's all I got. Not quite as good.
I think you've both answered the question about the purpose of the port. One of the purposes of the port is to create jobs. And what sort of jobs would you prioritize? And the second part of that question is, how should the port create these jobs which benefit the port, the community, and the small maritime businesses? And Corey, why don't you start?
The question is, as far as creating jobs, what would be the most important for me?
What sort of jobs would you prioritize?
Prioritize, okay.
And how should the port create these jobs which benefit the port, the community, and small maritime businesses?
I would prioritize the marine terminal. I used to be a longshoreman out of high school. I loaded logs down there. I now run my business out of the marine terminal. I believe that there's definitely more business that could be had there, more boats coming in, more freight going over the dock. There's a big company here in town that used to use the port all the time and now they don't, and I would look into that because now all of his stuff goes down to Seattle instead of staying here. I would just dig in and see what we used to do as a marine terminal and what we could do better. For me, my #1 priority would be the marine terminal as far as creating jobs.
You know, I agree with Corey on the marine terminal. It is a second biggest source of revenue for the port, the first being the marina. One of the things that we did as a commission that was a very difficult decision in the last 4 years is we voted to close the transit shed. You know, this beloved community building that since 1999 had been used for events. And the reason we did that is because constantly we were getting inquiries from companies about how can we come to your marine terminal, how can we do business with the Port of Anacortes, could this be our home port? Essentially, we don't create those jobs, we provide the infrastructure that private industry needs to come in and create those jobs. So with a facility like the transit shed, what we can envision going in there is a business that has a maritime use, a business that has family wage or living wage jobs, and it's a good fit for our community. I used the example the other day, if somebody wanted to truck nuclear waste into our community and then ship it by barge, the commission probably wouldn't be in favor of something like that. That's not a good fit for our longshoremen or for our community. But we are open to look at all different kinds of industries for job creation. So how should we create them? We got to do things like improve our infrastructure and have it, make it competitive so that business can relocate here. We just finished Quiet Cove cleanup and Curtis Wharf. We're doing some infrastructure things there, some pavement and some 2nd Street pavement is coming up, so that we'll be able to use that as a place that we can ship bulk commodities out of. One thing that our port doesn't have going for us is we don't have rail, right? So stuff comes in on ship, goes out by rail. Not in Anacortes, goes out by ship, then it's trucked in here. Could come in by here and then be trucked out. So those are issues that we work through to create jobs with private industry.
you see as the role of the Port Commissioner versus the Port Executive Director? And also, what is the role of the Port staff? So I think you're first now, right?
I'm going to use a maritime example. So the staff is the sailors, the executive director is the captain of the ship, and the port commissioners are charting the course for success for the port. And it's very important that every one of us knows our role and respects it. For example, a port commissioner does not have contact with staff members on a daily basis. If we have a question, and I asked a dumb question just today, I sent an email, I think, to one of the port directors and CC'd the executive director on a question someone asked me that I couldn't answer. But basically, we are at the helm of charting the course. So if the community comes to us and says, you know what, the marine terminal is only at 40% of its occupational its capacity, let's encourage business at the marine terminal, we'll do it. If the community comes to us and says, commissioners, we're not using our marina to its full capacity, we want to see more commercial, less, and this is just an example, more commercial recreational boats, then that's something that the commission would consider. If the public comes to us and says, you know, we need more uplands development for light manufacturing in the community, what capacity do you have at the airport or in your property out at March's Point for that? Those are things we would consider. Then it would go to the executive director. We would say, this is what we'd like to do as a commission. It's time for you to steer the ship in that direction. And that's exactly what happened at March's Point. We had bought the T. Bailey building for a project. The project fell through. The commission said, get us a company in here that's going to pay living wage jobs. And the director and the staff went out and found a welding business, a big welding business, that relocated there and brought 25 jobs into our community. And they're wanting to grow.
So the role of a commission that I believe is, you've got, the commission has one employee, it's the executive director. The commission's role, I believe, should be to hold the executive director accountable, make sure there's transparency in the port and everything the port does, and set policy for the marina, the marine terminal, the airport, and also approve budgets.
The next question was, how do you approach differences of opinion or any potential conflict that might occur between you and the port director and or port staff and or your fellow commissioners? Corey, I think you're first on that.
Could you repeat that? I was trying to say something.
Oh, sure, so, no problem. If elected, how would you approach differences of opinion and any potential conflict that may occur between you and the port director and or the port staff or your fellow commissioners?
Well, I'm a firm believer in sitting down, talking, and compromise. I compromise, negotiate all the time, and there's always a way to come up with a solution. Whether it be the executive director, and whether it be a one-on-one with the executive director, if it has to be an executive session. I just believe sitting down, talking face to face, and working it out.
So it's an interesting question. So there's 5 commissioners, you know, and when we consider topics, we don't always agree. We are able oftentimes to sit down and hash through issues and come up with compromises. But when that decision is made, when the vote is taken, it can be 3-2, it can be 4-1, it can be 5-0, it's done, and we move on. So we have very little conflict. And I appreciate that some of my commissioners bring a different perspective than I do, and I think they appreciate that I bring a different perspective than they do. It's funny you asked about the executive director, because if more of these questions come up, I need to be very transparent with you. The executive director is currently going through an evaluation period, like he does every year. And what happens in executive session legally, I cannot talk about it. So I have to be very careful about how I answer those questions. But I can tell you that most of the commissioners do either talk on the phone or meet with the executive director regularly. That is something that we try to do. The executive director is careful to try to give us all the same information. So there are conflicts sometimes that between staff and executive director and the commission, but as Corey said, we usually can sit down and talk through them.
The next question is, what is the responsibility of the Port Commissioner in supporting operations and staff development?
You know, that's a great question. As Corey said before, we have one employee, and that is the port director. But we do make sure through our policies that our staff is given opportunities to develop. You know, for example, the Washington State Port Association provides ongoing training in environmental issues, ongoing training in port accounting, finance, in numerous different seminars through the years that our employees attend. We also think about things like what is the next step for an employee, and we try to make sure, and this doesn't sound very nice, but we always tell Dan Laura, if a bomb dropped on you tomorrow, who would have this information that we need going forward? And so we developed the 3 division directors so that any one of them could step in and take his role if they had to at any time. The division directors that develop the staff underneath them, especially, I see that in the finance department as much, very much. The operations department, John DeMoss's division, I know they have training and they do an excellent job as well. What I don't see very much, as much as Corey, is the what happens in the marina, because I walk there at 5:30 in the morning and he's there every day with his boat, so he has a greater knowledge of what happens down there and how that staff is developed.
Can you repeat that question?
What is the responsibility of the Port Commissioner in supporting operations and staff development?
The only role that I'm familiar with that the commission has is directing their one employee, which then again directs the rest of the staff. I don't know how often commission actually interacts with staff or has anything to do with the staff hiring. I mean, I could definitely find that out and get back to you.
Thank you. I think you covered this, but I might have you repeat it, because I think it's really important to people to describe your background and experience in developing budgets and overseeing financial management in organizations similar to the Port of Anacortes. And that would be you, Corey. Describe your background and experience in developing budgets and overseeing financial management in organizations similar to the Port of Anacortes.
Well, being self-employed for nearly a little over 30 years, I didn't really have a budget. I mean, I definitely looked at profit and loss. Acquiring businesses, I looked at profit and loss. As far as a budget, the only interaction I've had with the budget is my new marine transportation company, where, you know, it's pretty strict on how much we can spend on maintenance and how much we can spend on wages, which I've exceeded that. But as far as a big corporation or big budgets like the port has, like their $20 million budget, that's a little out of my wheelhouse, but I can look at the profit and loss and look at a forecast and pick it apart, because that's what I do.
you know, the port budget is more than I've ever dealt with too, Corey. So it's when you first see the port budget, this is the port budget book for 2023. It's kind of, it's like an appendix to the Bible for a port commissioner. But we're very fortunate that staff, our finance director, Jill Brownfield, breaks it down for us. My experience, of course, came in municipal government. At the police department, we had a $6 million budget at the time, my last year there, which was 6 years ago now. I worked for Mayor Maxwell, and the guy could, there's a saying about stretching a penny into copper wire or something, but in any case, at the beginning of it, you know, we always, 90 days before the budget hearings with the city, had to develop our budget, calculate wages, which was really an interesting thing. We worked, and we were a union environment, so we negotiated a contract with the union, and then our wages were set on that, and we tried to, you never knew what was going to happen in that world, so we tried to always build in a little cushion with that. As far as our other operational expenses, we knew our fleet expenses, we knew our, you know, our building operations expenses. The issue we always had was the jail. We always went over in the jail. We put too many people in jail. That was a bad thing, I guess. But that gave me some really good insight into public management of funds and public budgeting. So I've been able, that's been a transferable skill, even though the port doesn't get to put people in jail. You know, there are huge operational costs. The thing that was new to me was depreciation and Gatsby rules. I don't know if there's anyone in public finance, but it's very difficult to understand. So it's funny, I was looking in preparation for this to see what our net profit every year. Well, there's net profit, then there's net profit with depreciation and net profit with non-operating expenses. So it's 3 different figures. So if you ask me a specific on that, I'm going to say, which one do you want, probably?
There is a well-recognized goal in our community to ensure the coordination and consistency between the city and the port, planning and economic development activities. We'll start with Bonnie. What have you done as a commissioner to meet that goal?
The 2 things I can think of immediately off the top of my head, and then I'll give you an example of something that the council and the commissioners worked out on our own. When I joined the Port Commission, I was having a conversation with the executive director, and I said, we need a joint city port meeting. We used to have those. Then that hasn't happened yet, and that disappoints me. It's been 3.5 years, it hasn't happened yet. We haven't come together. But what we did do is each port commissioner was assigned a city council person to meet with regularly and talk about shared issues. I know we oftentimes will watch each other's meetings on TV. Nobody wants to go in an extra meeting during a week, but we'll watch and discuss what the issues are for them. I sit and have sat for 3 years on the Port City Liaison meeting monthly, and that's a very good information sharing session that happens with the port and the city. And it's a time where all of the players are in the room and can talk about issues. And of course, we've been talking about alternatives to the transit shed. One of the most successful things that I think I've done as a commissioner, early on, there was a issue with the city. They wanted an easement. We needed something from them, and it wasn't happening. And every meeting I'd go to, I'd hear, nope, that's been delayed at the city. Well, one of my counterparts, who was my assigned council member, said, every time we go to a meeting, we hear, nope, that's been delayed at the port. So we actually were able to check with staff, check with our mayor and executive director, and find out what was going on. And what we found out is there had been some, I don't want to say leveraging, but there have been some tit-for-tat government kind of things going on with staff. Sometimes staff is zero-sum, and commission is like, hey, what's best for our community? And that doesn't mean the staff's bad. That means they're working hard for the agency they work for, right? So as a commission and as a council, we took those two, the mayor and to our executive director. Both agreements were executed and the community won.
So Bonnie's had more experience with the port and the city than I have, but I've got good friends of mine that are port staff. I've got good friends of mine that are city council. And when I talk to both of them, they tell me how the relationship needs work. And I'm a communication guy, I'm a compromise guy, I'm a negotiation guy. There's some things that's happened, like this outfall deal. I mean, there's different things that could happen with the outfall that didn't happen. And I think getting the right people together to talk, whether it's the port or whether it's the city, I think that just needs to be fixed, because that's all I hear from, not all I hear from them, but I hear about how the city and the port need to get along better and how they wish they would.
I'm going to ask you, Bonnie, to follow up on that, since you're already a commissioner, about how you feel the relationship is between the city and the port, and how to make, if there's a problem, do you feel that that's being worked on?
You know, if there's a problem at the staff level, that would fall back on the mayor, and that would fall back on the executive director. I don't see a problem, you know, I think I have all but one of the city council two have endorsed me, and we talk routinely. And I know the other commissioners talk to the council members as well. So from our perspective, yes, things do go slowly sometimes, but no, we have a good working relationship back and forth. Yes, sometimes things, you know, sometimes there are things that get held back. We disagree with them on some issues, but I know that staff just had a very productive meeting, their attorney, our attorney, and staff last Friday, I think. So I don't see it from the perspective that Corey sees it from.
Thank you. Next question, this will go to Corey. What investments has the port made to support and maintain commercial marine infrastructure? And please include environmental cleanup.
Well, a big one they're doing right now is the new T-dock. In the last few years, they've redone the web lockers, the electrical in the web lockers. They've redone the electrical on B-dock, because the new boats you can't tie up. You have to have GFIs. They'll break if your boat isn't wired correctly. You'll pop a breaker and take the whole dock out. So they redid all the power. We've had a new A-dock in the last, I don't know when that was, 10 years ago. No, that was 3 years ago. Anyway, COVID's got me a couple of years. But as far as supporting the commercial fishing, I think that was the question, commercial fishing.
Yeah, no, it's more focused on the maintain commercial marine infrastructure. But if you wanted to talk about that, and I just had put in include environmental cleanup.
Gotcha. And then they're also in the works right now is shore power for the boats that tie up at the Marine 1 or Pier 1, Pier 2, Curtis Wharf. That way they don't have to run their generators all night and make noise all night long. They're looking at doing a pump out, so we can hook into the city sewer for pumping out their waste instead of, you know, they go out offshore and just pump it out. So I think those are two big things, and that's environmental there. Other than that, I know they're looking at into doing some piling work at Curtis Wharf. That's about it.
So piling repairs, it seems to me it's almost constant. So I'm glad you brought up T-dock. T-dock is a great project. The dock was built in 1980, maybe late 70s. My first year as commissioner, staff came to us and said, boy, it was rated to hold this much tonnage. We're losing capacity. These old creosote pilings are just not cutting the mustard anymore. And being somebody who was a risk manager, I said, well, how fast can we go? What do we need to do? And immediately staff took mitigation to make the dock stay safe. They put steel plates down, they put up signage to keep the semi-trucks off as much as they can. And we started working on T-dock, and the Marine Committee that Corey is on, and actually he was part of this, we as a commission, we sent the orders out with staff, you know, get an architect, get us some drafts, talk to the fishermen, what do they need, because $14 million worth of product comes across TDOC every year. Came back with 3 plans, ran them by the Marina Advisory Committee, came up with the best plan, but also the most expensive plan. So then with that, we started planning, doing our environmental studies, going to the legislature and the federal government asking for money. One of the most exciting environmental projects, though, is this TDOC replacement, because those 140 creosote pilings will be replaced with steel pilings. And the surface, which is now creosote wood, will have 100% stormwater catchment to it. So that's a very exciting process for us. Corey alluded to the electrification, it's called cold ironing. That project is probably 10 years out. And that, I think we're looking at Curtis Wharf on that. Probably quicker is the commercial pump out, and I talked about that earlier, that this was all funded through the legislature. And that's a great project. It's the little tugboats, they're not little. They have to, can't dump their water, their sewage into the federal waters. So when they come in, we give them an opportunity to use our commercial pump out.
And this is a part of that question. What investments has the port made to support a recreational marine use? That would be for you first. Yeah, Corey, you go first.
Corey first or Bonnie? Me, okay. Yes, so the marina is our, about 52% of our business comes from the marina. And one year we had 20,000 recreational boater nights there. It's a 1,000 slip marina at this point. 800 of those are recreational spaces. So what we have done to make that more accessible to everyone is with the construction on ADOC, they improved the esplanade, which is essentially a fancy word for sidewalk, got improved along ADOC. Seafarers Park ties into that. And then you go in front of the Harbor Master and Anthony's building, and we've got a beautiful place to walk, which continues to the north end of the marina and on into Rotary Park there. And that has been a coordinated project over years for the port. Some of the money that we used for that was RCO money or recreation money and public funds to keep that area open to the public. In addition to that, we're currently building the RV park at the north end. And if you walk down there, historically we let people park on that gravel lot, which was filled from when they dredged the north end when they built it. And folks would come and park their RVs, and that was nice, but some of them crabbed and some of them fished and dumped their stuff on the ground, and some of them stayed too long. So we decided to make it an amenity that people could come and stay at and have a clean, safe place to stay. In addition to that, one of the exciting things is we developed the rules, which we'll be doing shortly, staff's developing, the commission will approve them, is that all the regattas that the high school and middle school sailing teams have, we'll be offering or holding a few places in that RV park for families to come watch their kids sail. So it's an exciting project. I wasn't real excited about it at first. I was like, you're building a trailer park. But the staff came to us and said, this is the need on Fidalgo Island. Washington Park's full, Fidalgo RV's full. We don't have enough space for people to recreate near the water. This could be something that draws people into downtown and draws them to the waterfront. So it's a good project. I'm happy to support it.
I don't have much to add. I mean, I could just repeat things. I just don't. She did a very good job.
Thanks, Corey. What are the most important infrastructure projects for the near future, and how will they be funded? Corey, you would be first on that.
I'm going to defer to Bonnie because I don't know of any. I don't know the answer.
Bonnie?
Well, for me, TDOC, TDOC needs to be finished. $14 million worth of commerce comes over that dock. It's interesting because as a port, we'll not have a return on that investment. It's free for any fisherman to come into TDOC and unload their fish, unload their catch. It's free for everyone's use. It's a public amenity. But it's really important. It's super important to our commercial fishing fleet. So it's important to the economy of Anacortes. That's a project I can't wait to see through. big project that we haven't talked about and is several years out is recapitalization of the north end of the marina. So as you know, the north end was added in the 1980s, and I can't believe that was 40 years ago now. And if you've ever had a dock, docks need a lot of work and repair. So we have in the past few years been doing Band-Aid fixes. We did some repair work on MNO, and then we're doing PQ dock, I think, this year. But the bottom line is eventually the staff is telling us those docks have maybe 15 years, well, it depends on who you talk to. Some will say 5 years, some will say 15 years of wear left in them. That is a $50 million project to recapitalize the north end of the marina. We're thinking carefully about funding that through state, federal, environmental grants as we remove creosote pilings. We think we'll have some mitigation credits from those. So that is a project that we as commissioners are thinking about currently. It's not on our 5-year CIP. We're not even that close, but we know that it's coming. Short-term projects, the airport's getting a new, we're putting a new underground stormwater retention pond in there. Why is that important? Because birds land on ponds. Do you want birds at the airport? No, you do not. We are doing that with FAA grant money, so that will be something that we have to work through with them.
Okay, the next question is, what metrics do you think best captures whether the port is accomplishing its goals? And so, metrics meaning, how do you evaluate what you're doing and how it's working, and where do you go from there?
It'd be easy to say I look at the budget and the net profit loss statement, and I can tell you that the port's budget has grown from $15 million to, I'll have to read my 2023 book, but we're well over $18 million this year. But it's not about profit and loss. It's about bringing living wage jobs into the community. It's about being respectful community partners. And there are things we could do better. Sometimes when we have issues, I call them dust-ups, and oftentimes they're communication issues, which we can always do better on. Corey alluded to, we need to be transparent. And we know that, and we try, but we fall short sometimes. Recently we had a group of citizens who, and it wasn't the first time we've heard from them, and it may not be the last time, but they live in above the marine terminal, and they were concerned about noise. And this time they made a statement that we were violating the not the revised code of Washington, the other one, but the law in Washington State, the WAC, Washington Administrative Code. Now, for me, when you say you're violating the law, I have a problem with that. And so, I was like, stop, let's call the attorney, let's get an opinion. Our staff did such a good job. I think many people here were at the presentation talking about the historic waterfront and how it fits into our community. But at the same time, as a commissioner, we had responsibility to listen to those neighbors and hear what they said. We could not resolve the issue the way the neighbors wanted it to happen, but it was really important to me that everyone in the SAW community saw the working waterfront's important. Corey did a great job in rallying people to come to that meeting and talk about the impacts on their family and the living wage jobs they have on the working waterfront. I'm proud we listened to that neighborhood, though, and we'll continue to try our best to mitigate noise when we can.
So I think as a port, we need to, which we did a good job of listening to the people on the ramp issue. I believe we need to stretch that further into the marina. The yacht broker thing was kind of but I just think we need to be more transparent with our tenants and hear their voice, and that's what I would want to improve is, and as a commissioner, just say that we definitely need to hear the voices of the constituents, the voices of the tenants. I mean, the tenants are one of the most important roles of the port. Without tenants, we don't have a business without tenants. So I'm just transparency, the accountability. The transparency is, I don't know if it's getting better, but it's, the accountability is an issue. You know, there's, oh, I'm just rambling.
Well, it's interesting, I was gonna ask this question in the second half, but since it's come up, I think it's worth, this was a question. A recent Port Commission meeting focused on a conflict with neighbors complaining about noise outside the business hours established by the port. There have been several articles in the local newspapers about this issue. What are your ideas about helping to resolve this issue?
You want me to go?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, it's interesting. Before I came to Anacortes, I lived in Bow in the farmland, and when we closed on our little farmette that we had, we signed at closing, signed a thing saying we acknowledge that we lived in an agricultural zone, and that if the potatoes needed to be harvested at 2 in the morning, if the peas needed to be vined, so be it. So I was surprised that we didn't have that in Anacortes, because the working waterfront has been there for so many years. So, you know, after this dust up, I have talked to a couple of local realtors and said, isn't there something that advises people that they have, you know, that they're moving next to a working waterfront? How can we help mitigate this? And the city certainly has a part in this too, in zoning and figuring that out. So there's a lot of things that we can do. But again, it's compromise. Not everybody's going to be happy because the noise is there. We have a working waterfront. But yes, we can work together to find some solutions.
Well, after that Port Commission meeting, I felt we came to a conclusion. I figured that it was pretty much done. Me being operating the one of the vessels, one of the 4 that are making noise, but I was the one that was targeted. Tides sometimes affect our living. I got to get oxygen to the hospital. I got to leave at 5 o'clock in the morning to make it work. I'm not going to wait till 7 and then all of a sudden we can't do it, and then people's lives are in danger in San Juan Island. We try our hardest to be a good neighbor. I've installed D-rubber underneath my ramps. I've installed aluminum extended ramps, which are extremely quiet. The other 2 barges do not have that. I am trying real hard. When Tom Jackson came to me and said, hey, it's kind of noisy, I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and there's nothing I can do about the tide. I just can't do it. Because I sure wouldn't be sitting here talking to you people. So as far as that being an issue, I don't know that it's an issue. I've talked to Matt Miller, I've talked to Ryan Walters. I had like a 2-hour conversation with Ryan Walters the other day. We agreed on about everything, which is good. And as far as I know, there's no action being taken by the city either. So I think it's resolved.
Either of you want to go? This is, obviously, it's been in the newspapers, so it's something that people are talking about. Do you feel that there is anything else that you're going to be able to do to resolve the noise issue with the tenants?
You know, I support what Corey says. Tide and time waits for no man. And when the fish come in, the fish come in. When the fuel has to go out, the fuel has to go out. And we were in summertime, and tides really at the point of delivery, it's impacting his business. So we support the tenants in their operations. There is no further action. There's always things that we consider in the future. If this comes up again, and there's things we can work with city government on if there is something that can be done. Certainly having a notification when somebody sells their house saying, by the way, you are moving next to a working waterfront, are you aware of that? That's important to me, that we would make that notification. That one might prevent a future dust up.
So just to add, I don't know if you all listened to the Port Commission meeting when Tom Jackson did his 19-minute deal. But I made an effort to send him a text message letting him know that, hey, I have to leave early the next day, and just got no response. I mean, so I'm trying to let people know what we're doing, and that's not good enough, I guess. I'm just trying to make a living, trying to keep my guys making a living, trying to provide the essential stuff to the islands that they can't get any other way but with us. Not just me, but San Juan Ferry Barge. They have 2 vessels, San Juan Marine Freight House, 2 vessels, and the Pintail. I mean, we're just trying to provide for the islands.
Well, thank you for that, because that was certainly something that there was actually a question before the meeting even started. The other thing that was mentioned in this, and this is kind of an interesting thing, that there was, at this meeting, there was a vote of no confidence. Is that in the executive director? Is that an accurate statement?
So the Marine Trades Committee last year came up with a vote of no confidence in our executive director. It is not a binding thing. It was an advisory thing that they brought to the commission.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, I think right at this point, it's probably a good idea to take a break. Sorry, to take a break. We're just going to go for a couple of minutes. What we'd like to do is, if you have any questions, if you wrote them down, we gave out cards. Please. Okay, Stan, are you going to collect the cards for us?
I'm going to collect it, so if you have questions, I have a number of them here. If any of the rest of you have a card to hand off, just raise your hand and I'll come around and grab it from you.
You know, before we break, though, I want to mention that we have one of our representatives here, Deborah Lekanoff. Thank you for coming. It's an honor to have you here. I noticed that you were there and going, wow, fantastic, thank you.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it.
Right, yeah.
I think we have 1 or 2 individuals outside, but please go ahead.
Hopefully everybody, we're going to continue on. We have quite a few more questions. We have a lot of questions that other people have asked. Of course, we just talked about the transit shed, and that, of course, is one of the questions that people are asking.
Explain.
And one of the part of that question, and I could ask, what is the port going to be involved to help provide a different venue for large public events? And the other part of that was, why was the marina parking lot developed into an RV park rather than a site for the public venue? And sort of kind of piggyback those 2 questions on the transit shed issue. So I'll start with Bonnie, since you were involved, and put you on the spot, I'm sorry.
Mr. Timekeeper, we're going to go over time on this probably. So, yes, we are involved going forward in leading the transit shed. You know, as commissioners, we look at highest and best use of our facility, and using that facility, even though it was beautiful, was not the highest and best use of that facility for providing living wage jobs. I just had a meeting with at the Arts Commission today with Meredith McElmoyle, talking about what is the role of the port, what is the role of city government, what is the role of the Anacortes school districts, the art foundations, and everyone who wants to see public space. How do we come together to make that happen? Yeah, because the port, you know, the event center was a great idea. It was a $26 million project several years ago. I can't imagine what it would be now. When we look at the marina and projects at the marina, we have to consider a couple things. That's a recreational space, yes. We also we're looking at our West Basin redevelopment plan. And in fact, we just went through a design review with the city and passed that. So we have the opportunity now to develop that. And we won't be developing it until we take a lot of public comment on what the community wants there. There's still siting there. But we as a community have to come, and as governments within this community have to come together and say, this is what I can contribute, this is what I can contribute. Because I can tell you the port can't carry the whole load. We might have land, the Arts Commission might have grant money, the school district might have some money, some assets that they can help if they're doing performing arts there, which I don't know why they do, because they have beautiful Broadway, but they might have some seat at the table, as does the city. It's going to take a community, and I foresee that, and this is just me talking, it doesn't have to go with the marina. I know that there's people who want to be located close to the downtown business district. There's other options that the port could do and work on, but we can't do it alone. So I hope that answers the question. Yes, we are at the table.
Okay, thank you. Corey, would you like to?
I got actually lots on this one.
Okay, good.
I might go over time.
Okay, this is a question that's come up quite a few times. I think it's one of the questions somebody also asked, so yeah, let's talk about it for a few minutes if you don't mind.
No, I totally get it. In my opinion, I think the port missed it on this one. I think that they should have relocated their office before they shut down the event center. Who knows how long it's going to be before they move their offices. They're going to be there with an empty transit shed with cars parking in it. So I think that was a big miss on that. I think they got real excited about the event center that is not being built in the North Basin, and they made plans to shut it. I'm not sure if those were in the same time frame, but I also believe that it's not the port's mission to have an event center. I think that's a city deal. But as of right now, that thing's going to sit empty for who knows how long until they find port offices somewhere else. It's just going to sit vacant. And there's going to be lots of city uproar. There's going to be lots of public comments. There's going to be lots of articles in the newspaper. Probably not city council meetings, but probably port commission meetings, probably bigger than the little nuisance that I make at the port ramp. So, I also don't believe that the port should be responsible for building an event center. It's not our port mission. Our port mission is to create jobs. An event center doesn't create any jobs. I do believe the port should be involved financially. They should be in partnership with the city. And I think they should be in partnership with a couple of the large landowners around town that probably would sit down at the table. So as far as that event center, as far as the transit shed going away, the goal is to have 40 jobs in there, which makes sense because that's the port's mission. We want 40 jobs in that space, using the warehouse, using the dock, tying their boats up, using all that space for what it's intended for. But as of right now, it's just going to sit empty, and that doesn't make any sense to me.
Brian, would you like to comment on that a little bit?
Yeah, I've not heard that number 40 jobs. I don't know where that came from. That warehouse will not sit vacant. Current port tenants have laydown that they want to put in there. So there will be things in there. And laydown is a little misleading. I was in a meeting a while back where someone said, you're going to take away the event center and put crab pots in here. Well, you know what? We have a port tenant who has a large commercial crabbing operation, and you see his gear on the docks all the time, or you see his gear 2 blocks away in laydown area. We have a rope company that's requesting more room constantly. They already rent one of our warehouses. They would love to use that for laydown. We're looking at highest and best purpose for that. We'd like to attract a business to come to town and make Anacortes their home port. That is a staff issue, and that is a business issue that I will not be privy to until staff has recommendations. And that's obviously for business reasons. But there will be things in there germane to maritime industry in January. I can't comment also about where the port offices are relocating, but they are relocating.
Can you explain what laydown is?
Yes.
Thank you.
It is the stuff that maritime industry needs to operate. So for example, those little Crowley tugboats that aren't so little, when they come into Anacortes, they they escort the vessels into the refinery and then they leave. Well, they want to go north or wherever they're going as quickly as possible. So what they need to make that voyage comes from their warehouse down on T Avenue, comes up onto the docks in Anacortes and is loaded on the ship so they can leave. Other laydown things are refinery equipment, commercial fishing equipment for tenders and bigger boats, things like that. Also, Trident Seafoods, which is not a port business, does not have enough space. And so oftentimes you'll see their refrigerator trucks and equipment on port property, and they pay a small percentage of a small fee to have rent space from us.
Okay, thank you so much. That was an important issue for a lot of folks, so it's nice to get some clarification. Thank you. The next question has to do with the large yacht brokerage firms now dominate the Anacortes Fidalgo Bay waterfront and the near shore berths in the port marina. How will you work to make sure that other recreational boating and related services and businesses are supported to enable them to compete and stay in business? And how is the port encouraging and supporting the small maritime trades? Is that it? Is
That
that
didn't make any sense.
okay? Well, okay. The large yacht brokerage firms now dominate the Anacortes Fidalgo Bay waterfront and the nearshore berths in the port marina. And the question was, if that's the case, how will you work to make sure that other recreational boating and related services and businesses are supported to enable them to compete and stay in business? And the competition then would be with the large yacht brokerage firms. And how is the port encouraging and supporting the small maritime trades as opposed to the large yacht brokerage firms? And if you feel that that's not accurate, please let me know. Bonnie?
I'll take a stab at it.
Sure.
So that's a market-driven decision. So it's interesting, since Anthony's went in, people sit in Anthony's and they look out and see beautiful boats and they buy them. And that is a good thing for Anacortes. You know, the last report I saw on city sales tax, yacht sales were fifth. We're fifth. You know, I think restaurants and cars beat them and what we buy on Amazon. It is an issue, and you know, and Corey alluded to this earlier. The port could have done a little bit better job with not a little bit. We could have done a better job with the yacht brokers. The issue dragged on, and we can blame COVID for a little bit of that, and then some misinformation and lack of information. But in the end result, and government takes time, is that we came up with a compromise. So when a yacht broker sells their business in Anacortes, an existing yacht broker, part of those, and if you don't know this, nobody leases spaces on long term at our marina. It's month to month. And that actually, when I first came to town, that was a good thing for some of the commercial brokers because the economy tanked and they could pull their boats, right? And we want them to have that flexibility. If the economy tanks and they're not selling boats and it's not financially viable and they need to get them out of the water, do it. That's okay. But business is good. So yacht broker A sells to yacht broker B. And the agreement that we came up with was a portion, nobody can get over, I believe it's 20 slips, 20 or 18, I can't recall off the top of my head. And we have about 80 slips available. A portion of those slips go into the waiting list, because we do have a waiting list for commercial spaces, for commercial slips. The port could have done, what we found out through this whole issue was the waiting list was not being handled correctly. There was no malfeasance, it just was an antiquated system of doing it. And the yacht brokers actually helped us develop a new waiting list, because the people on the waiting list were the other yacht brokers. They just wanted better slips near Anthony's so they could sell more boats. And as a port commissioner, my thinking was, oh, all these different people are on the slips. No, it was the same people who wanted the better slips, and I didn't have an understanding of that. So that issue is, we've worked through that as far as some go back into the pool, so there's no monopoly, and someone who's been on their waiting list and a new client could come in and take a slip. And then we recognized at the same time the other commercial tenants, the legacy commercial fishing families. Historically, when a boat transferred between father and son, if someone were retired, you weren't guaranteed that slip. And now they're guaranteed the slip. The slip goes with the vessel if it's going into the same family. Same with the net sheds. And they're very competitive because there are very few net shed spaces. So we were able with this agreement to make it work for everyone, I hope. I don't know if the issue's 100% resolved, but it's something that we were proud to do. So we are still providing room for the small businesses as far as yacht brokers. As far as the marine trades, we have to heal our relationship with the Marines Trade Committee. And I openly admit that relationship has been fractured and needs repairing. And we are working with staff on that. In our West Basin plan, we have the opportunity to build, I think it's up to 4 buildings. I don't know if we're going to build that many. But one of the comments that commissioners make frequently is, you know, we need a chandlery. We need businesses down there that have to do with the marina. We need opportunity for our local small businesses to compete. Probably don't need another franchise restaurant or chain restaurant at the marina. So again, when we go through that public process, we'll be making those opportunities available for small business.
So I'm not sure if that question was just about boat slips or if it was about everything. It didn't.
Well, how will you work to make sure other recreational boating and related services and businesses are supported to enable them to compete and stay in business with the, opposed to the large yacht brokerage firms that dominate the port right now? And so how is the port encouraging and supporting the small maritime trades?
Well, as far as the brokered slips go, I mean, there's only so many slips, and everybody can't have a brokered slip. And that's why there's waiting lists, and that's why there's, if somebody sells their business, then some slips come available, and if somebody's on the waiting list, then they get a slip. We can't provide slips for everybody. Just like on the commercial fishing, our B dock right now during crab season fills up. I mean, it's probably gonna start filling up. I bet you next week it's completely full. And it sits almost empty all year long. Not almost empty, but we have transit coming in, but that thing will be completely full. And then there's still people that can't have a slip because they're not available. So I'm not sure what we can do about that except for build more slips. And as far as, another way to create more business for marine trades is to maybe have a building on the marina in that North Basin that there could be like electronics or a repair facility or something that supports the people coming on the transits, because we have more transit nights than I think most marinas. I don't know the exact number, but we have a lot of transit nights and a lot of people break down. I was walking down B dock 2 days ago. There was a brand new Genova, however you pronounce that. The people were dead in the water, and they had the engine cowl off, and I just said, what's going on? And they said they called 4 different people, nobody to answer. So I dug into it, and I found a loose ground. They started their boat up and they left. So I just, they're just like, who's this guy? He's shorts, no shoes, who's this guy? And I said, I'll help you. And then we traced everything out and found that, but 4 people he called, nobody to answer the phone. So I don't know, if there was somebody, if there's an office at the marina, or I'm not sure how else we could make that work. I mean, employees are a big problem for marine trades right now. And I'm not sure how the port can help out that problem other than having, workshops and, promote the Marine Tech building. But I don't think there's enough employees to yeah. Employment is a big problem. It's hard to get good help, and a lot of people are not getting in the marine trades, and I'm not sure how the port can help do that.
Bonnie, do you feel that there's something that can be done to help support the small maritime trades?
And Corey alluded to this, the port is really interested in workforce development, and the Marine Trades Academy is right down there in port property that was gifted to Skagit Valley College. Unfortunately, a lot of the students take composites and want to go in the airline industry. I don't know why they want to build planes and not boats. But we are interested, very interested in workforce development, and I'm sad that Representative Lukanov, who's still in the room, help us with that, with workforce development. We do partner with Skagit Valley College. Hexcel over at the Port of Skagit has a great program for interns from the tech vocational program at Skagit, and we'd love to see something like that at the Port of Anacortes.
Okay. I'm going to go to the questions in a couple of minutes. This is a question that came up, Corey, and it's sort of directed at you because of your job. You have a business that is port related. If there is a conflict of interest between the port issues and your personal economic interests, will you recuse yourself from the discussion of policies and any votes that will affect your interests?
This is simple, absolutely.
Great. The follow-up on that was, is there a code of ethics for port commissioners? And this will go to Bonnie. If not, do you think there should be one?
There should be a code of ethics for all public officials and all public employees. I do believe our professional organization, the Washington State's Port Association, does have a code of ethics, but I'm not sure. I'll look that up and get back to you. We do have language in our personnel policies about behavior, but no, I don't believe there's any specific code of ethics.
Thank you. I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'm going to go to some of the questions. Okay, we're moving along here, so we'll see. We've got quite a bit of questions here, but I'll ask this one. How can the Port Commission balance the goals of economic growth and job creation versus supporting the quality of life of Anacortes residents, including local and environmental impacts? And Bonnie, describe what you have done as a Port Commission to balance these goals.
No, I think I got it. So job creation, economic development, and environmental impact. You know, one of the things when I ran last time, one of my tagline statements was economic development and industry and environmental sustainability are not incongruent statements. You can have both of those. And you look no farther than Metro, which is the stevedore company that we use, joined Green Marine. Green Marine is, the port is a member of Green Marine too. That's a voluntary program to make sure that your practices are environmentally sustainable. In fact, in my little notebook of facts, and so if you ask me a question and I don't know it, I'll pull this out. We have reduced our carbon emissions at the port by 40% since we joined Green Marine. We're very, very proud of that. That's why we're looking at programs like cold ironing. The fact that one of our partners, Metro Stevedores, signed on to that is exciting to us as well. And we anticipate that probably other port tenants, as they're available to do that, can do it. I received a constituent and a tenant of the port called me last year about a state program as commercial boats upgrade their engines. There was some funding available for using more efficient, less carbon burning engines, and he asked me about that. And we didn't have a lot of information on that at the time, but I said, you know, I would be supportive of that and helping you figure that out. And he has since invited me to a seminar that they had on electric engines on commercial boats, which I think is a big reach right now at this point in time, but I think it might be sustainable at some point. And then they canceled the seminar, so I didn't go. So there's always opportunities to work together for that.
Thank you. Corey?
You might want to repeat it.
Oh, sure. Not a problem. Okay. How can the Port Commission balance the goals of economic growth and job creation versus supporting the quality of life of Anacortes residents, including local and environmental impacts? And Corey, if you're elected, how will you balance those goals?
Well, one thing I've been thinking a lot about is as far as the economy is solar, I don't see much solar, and it's actually starting to work better now, the solar is. I would definitely look at solar. I know we can't put windmills up. I mean, there's not too much room in the channel to put them, plus we don't own that water in the channel. As far as economic growth, I mean, we already touched on that about the marine terminal. With you know, reaching out to the people that used to use it, and local companies that don't use it anymore and go to Seattle. That'd be some economic growth. And the quality of life is, you know, providing living wage jobs.
Okay, thank you. That's all the prepared questions. I have quite a few of these. One of the women would like me to ask this question. I think we asked it in a different manner, so I'm going to read the question the way she wrote it and see if there's anything more you want to add. The port has been in the news and has had heated meetings regarding the vote of no confidence in the executive director, and as of last meeting, the attempt to limit working waterfront hours of operation. Bonnie, as this has gone on during your term, what will you do differently if re-elected, and what will you do to repair the damage to your residents? And Corey's question, if you are elected, what will you do to see that the tenants both on land and sea are respected? So, Bonnie, I'll let you...
Yeah, we have had a couple dust-ups. And sometimes you need to have that dust-up to clear the dust away. Do I think we could have handled some things better? Yes, I do. And I think that, you know, I'll tell you, coming from a government entity to a port was a different operation. When I worked for the city of Anacortes in my position, if someone came to us and said, you are wrong on this, and I'm going to sue you, there's going to be litigation. We did this. We shut our mouths, and we did not talk to you anymore. We said, I'm so sorry that you're unhappy with our services. This is our lawyer's phone number. And so I assumed when I got to the port that we did the same thing. But I have come to realize that as a commissioner, your role is different than my role with the city was. I can have a conversation with anyone. And I didn't realize that when I first became a port commissioner. So I think that's the thing that I will do differently. I have one little thing that, Corey, you jogged my brain. So just last Thursday, we had a project this year of re-roofing some warehouses on the marine terminal. And we decided not to go through with that project because the price of aluminum and roofing has gone through the ceiling, and we decided we'd wait a year. The commission had asked staff for several years now to consider solar. And we just came from a conference where we saw Port of Camas had done a great solar project. And because the price of aluminum went up and we delayed this project, staff is now looking at putting solar panels on those roofs, so we're really excited about that. It has nothing to do with the first question, and I apologize, I just wanted everyone to know that.
What was my part?
That was the...
House of the tenants can,
Yeah. The question for you is, if you are elected, what will you do to see that the tenants, both on land and sea, are respected? And this was in relationship to the noise, the working waterfront hours of operation.
Well, I've already touched on what I've tried to do to fix that, or to help that problem, is putting the D-rubber, using the aluminum. Our engines aren't that noisy. The backup beepers on the trucks, they're noisy. But there's nothing we can do about DOT safety. It's excluded from any noise ordinance. As far as the tenants, I would definitely make sure their voices are heard. There's been an ongoing deal in our Marine Advisory Board about gates on VDOC, because there's been a lot of theft on VDOC. And you know, if the tenants actually had a say in, you know, just an opinion or just a voice to be heard, there probably would be gates on VDOC right now. I can't say that because the commission has to approve it, but you definitely see a unanimous decision. And it wouldn't be a gate that's locked all day. It'd be open during the day so everybody can walk down there. It'd be like a 10 o'clock till 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning to where it's shut, where nobody needs to be down there anyway. And, I kind of live on VDOC, and that's all I hear from everybody down there. They get stuff stolen, they get, boats broken into, life rafts lit off, and that's not cheap. That's $3,000 to repack that. But I will say that this new deal that they put in, this new light, it's like a virtual gate, and it's going to cast a beam when you walk down the gate. And if you don't put your card in there, the light's going to go off and somebody's going to start talking to you. And from what I've heard, it's an extremely bright light. My goal is that works, and then we don't have to put gates up, but we'll see how that works. I think it goes live soon, next week. Within the week, I think it goes live. And it actually was turned on not that long ago on accident. And people were walking down to Aero Launch, and this thing came and they, about knocked them down. It was so bright, and they're like, "What is this?" I mean, the people are talking to them. Port security's down there. So I think that's a pretty good solution. If it works, that's a great solution. And I'm glad that staff, John Dumas, has done a lot of work on researching that. I think it's going to be a good job.
Bonnie, would you like to address the idea of port security as well, since that's obviously something that's of concern to people?
Sure, one theft is too many thefts. I agree with that. It's interesting because we just got, I had asked Director Dumas for the statistics, and over an 18-month period, there were 35 reported thefts at the marina. That's too many. I get that. But then I asked what were the crime statistics in Anacortes during that same amount of time, and unfortunately last year, crime was up in Anacortes quite a bit. And so I think that we saw a trend. The new digital gate, we think is going to solve a lot of these issues. When the incident Corey's talking about, it actually called the Director Dumas at home in the middle of the night, and it wasn't supposed to be live yet, and it was. So it works very, very well, and we're hoping to do that. And the reason, the Gates was an issue long before I was on the commission, and I'm sure it will be long afterwards. It's a public marina, and everyone should feel safe there. And it's kind of like the public restroom issue. The first time that we addressed that as a commission, I'm a walker down there, and I was like, oh, please leave the restrooms open, because the public helps pay for the Esplanade and the upland buildings. And we left them open. However, our situation in Anacortes with some of our transient population became pretty volatile in the past year, in 22 especially. And we were having bloodborne pathogen incidents, and we were having vandalism in our restrooms that was costing thousands of dollars to the port too. So we were victimized along with some of our tenants as well. And we ended up locking our bathrooms, and that was a very difficult decision. If the trend does not reverse, and if this new gate system doesn't work, and I hope that we never have to go to it, but we need people to be secure at the marina. Yeah. There you go.
Okay, thanks for addressing. One of the questions was about why are there no public restrooms near the north end. And so,
Can I add one more thing to that?
Sure.
So I just requested, maybe one meeting or 2 meetings ago, there is an outhouse up by the Bill Mitchell Mermaid, what are they called? Mural, thank you very much. There's 2 outhouses up there now that were put there for summer, and I asked port staff to look at our budget and see if we couldn't keep those through the winter.
Thank you. I'll ask just 1 or 2 more questions. We're getting kind of late on time, and we want to have a few minutes for you folks to have closing arguments. Not arguments. Some kind of closing, hopefully not arguments. This is a question. I see that almost $200 of my property taxes goes to the port. What is that money used for, and what do I get in return for it?
Just taking that one first.
All right. Doesn't matter. Okay, Corey, grab the mic.
Okay, so this last year, there's $1.7 million of taxpayer money that came to the port, and that is used for 4 things. One of them is acquiring properties. you can, which was the Bartholomew property. They used that money to buy that, which created jobs. Another one is paying off debt, which the port doesn't do. Economical or environmental cleanups is another one. And then access to properties are the four things that taxpayer dollars goes. And I looked up mine and I paid, of course I don't have a big fancy house on the water, but I paid $65 last year for the port to do all those things. So I think it's well spent money.
Okay, this is one of those things I don't have in front of me, but I have an acronym I use to remember what we can use tax dollars for. It's called DEDP. Development, environment, acquiring property. I can't remember what the P is. But debt services is one. And Corey, we do pay off our debts. So how the port finances a lot of our projects is through general obligation bonds. Those are not bonds that you are paying on. What we do is we borrow against assets of our taxing district. So when we had ADOC, when we were in the process of building that, we found all the grants that we could possibly get to help with that. And then the balance of that, we went out for a general obligation bond. We were, I think at the time when I was on the commission, our debt ceiling is about $26 million, and we were at about $12 million. And we have paid that down, and I believe by next year we might be at $8 million. So we pay our debts. There are specific things that we can use tax dollars on, and I'm so sorry. I'll remember it as soon as this meeting is over, and I've been trying to memorize it for years, and I always have to look it up. But as far as value, let me talk about that for a minute. I have 60 seconds. So job creation is huge in our community. And the fact that we spend, and very few people in the city pay over $200 a year in port taxes. We have not had a levy in a long time. We do take that 1% inflator quite often. And what that means is for his $60, he's going to pay 60 cents more in the next year. If it's $200, you're going to pay $2 more. So it's a very small amount that we take, but that does add up over time, and we are very, very cautious and conservative with our tax dollars. We offset the economic development with the public space and public use. Seafarers Park is a beautiful facility available to everyone. Home port for the AWA, the Anacortes Waterfront Alliance. Summer concert series down there, different events down there through the years. We also own, in conjunction with the city, the property out at Ship Harbor, which is adjacent to the Guaymas Island Trail by the ferry. Beautiful beach, anyone can go walk on. We have a little small park right by between Curtis Wharf and Pier 1 that folks like going down there and sitting and watching what happens at the port. So we do have some public amenities, but we are very cautious with your tax dollars.
I'll make this the last. We have wonderful questions. We're just running out of time. The marina brokerages in the marina have been very vocal about changing the port policy to better support their business. What exactly is the issue, and how has the port addressed this issue?
That again.
Yeah, I'm not. The marina brokerages in the marina have been very vocal about changing port policy to better support their business. What exactly is the issue, and how has the port addressed this issue? Do you
want to take it first? You want me to take it? So we talked about this already. So that it used to be, because there was a waiting list, the port's interpretation was that none of those slips would transfer with the sale of a brokerage business. The commission took that up, and yes, it took us way too long to come to this conclusion, but at the end of the day, we compromised with our yacht brokers. Part of their, and these are our senior yacht brokers that have been there 5 years or more, I believe. When they sell a business, part of their slips go into the pool and part transfer with the business. So I believe we've taken care of that. Corey, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so as far as the brokerage changing policy, I don't think that's that they're trying to do anything. I think is what they're trying to do is they're trying to do with what they're trying to get back what was always done. When a brokerage sold their business, slips went with it. That's just what happened. You know, and I'm not sure why that changed. I mean, there's always been people wanting to get in there, but that business had those slips and they sold the business, the slips transferred, just like Bellingham does, just like Everett does. So I don't think they're trying to change any policy. I think they're trying to just get back what it used to be.
Do you feel comfortable with those two answers, Bonnie?
Yeah, I think the difference was, and at least the way it was explained to the commission, what happened was we got a waiting list because business got good. Before, when business wasn't good, we could give you slips. There were slips available, but there were no slips available, and I believe that's where the rub started.
I think we probably need to move along before it gets too late. I'm going to have both Bonnie and Corey make some closing statements. And
Yours is way longer.
No, it's not.
you have 2 minutes.
We were joking up here that we should sing karaoke together at the end of the night.
And donate the funds to Young Life. She wants, or Boys and Girls Club, whichever. I like Young Life. I just want to say I'm running for Port Commissioner because it's been something I've wanted to do for almost a decade. I was going to run last time. My mom got sick, dementia. It kind of freed up some time. Now I have all kinds of time to do it. I've got people running my businesses for me. So it's something that I've lived almost my entire life, is the marine industry. Working as a longshoreman, marine terminal, infrastructure, excavation company. I know about everything there is to do about infrastructure. I know how you start, what you do, putting in the infrastructure, putting in all the power, the utilities. I know all of that stuff. And I just feel that that would be a very good asset for the Port Commission.
I will never know as much about what happens on the docks as Corey has in his life that he's lived down there. He's really an asset, and he is a good neighbor to people in the marina. I understand that. Corey's done some, we agree on many things, and I gotta tell you, the Corey Saved Christmas story. We had, during COVID, the Christmas parade was canceled, and when they went to restart it, there was a miscommunication. I don't know what happened, but commissioners got phone calls, and the commissioners called staff and said, you know what, it's Christmas. We're having the Christmas parade. And we don't do that very often, but you know, Corey, thank you for bringing that to everyone's attention. That was a community issue that we could all get involved in. So what do I bring, and why am I running again? I bring that oversight, that budgeting, that planning, that long-range thinking. What is best for our community? What can the port do for the community? What can we do for our maritime industries? Who can we attract? What is the changing, what changes are happening in the maritime industry, and what do we need to do to attract those businesses to Anacortes? And that's why I was so pleased to go down to the legislature and to get funding for the cold ironing planning and for the commercial pump out. That will attract business, that will attract barge and tug business to our marine terminal. You know, the other thing that we are working on and still working on is T-Dock, and I want to end with this story. I got to go back to Washington, D.C. last March as part of the Pacific Northwest Waterways Association meeting, and we had contacted our Congressman Rick Larson and Senator Cantwell's office before we went back. We were having some trouble with the federal grant through the Federal Maritime Commission. They had put us in a district that was lumped in the refinery, and we were competing as a large port, not a small port. Now, in my experience with lobbying as a police officer, I never had a lot of success. Had some, not a lot. And so I went back there, and I felt like it was my Mrs. Smith Goes to Washington trip, like we were not going to be heard. And I have to tell you, Senator Cantwell's office came through with us. They got us an appointment with the Federal Maritime Commission. Brenda Treadwell, who's one of our directors, and an attorney went back. The director went back, I went back. We talked to the people at the Maritime Commission on a Thursday. On Monday we came home and they said, you know what, this rule is arbitrary. We're gonna have to change it. We want your help. Now they haven't changed the rule yet, But we are in contention for a 2024 federal port infrastructure grant, which will help us with TDOC. And that excites me, and that's why I want to continue to be a commissioner, to fund these big projects, to get these things through so we're not having to do a levy lift or raise our port taxes. We want to keep that millage rate low at 16 cents per thousand. We don't want to have to take any more taxes except that 1% inflator. I enjoy that part of the job a lot, getting things done. And that's why I want to continue. So thank you everyone for showing up tonight. Thank you, Barbara. Thanks, crowd. Thanks, Corey. And Corey and I kind of like each other. You can probably tell. We joke. We don't always agree, but we joke with each other. So thank you, everyone.